At some point before the Grips War began in earnest, Anaheim Electronics and the AUG launched the Zeta project. Their goal, creating a high-performance transformable mobile suit and creating the next-generation mass-production mobile suit for use by the AUG in their fight against the Titans. The latter progressed smoothly, with the development of the Gamma Gundam resulting in the successful Rid Diaz, but the former didn't go quite as planned. The Delta Gundam surely looked like an amazing machine with its golden finish, but unfortunately the beauty was only skin deep. Plagued by a myriad of technical problems, the movable frame of the Delta simply did not have the strength to support its transformation, and no matter what they did, they just couldn't get it right. Because of this, the Delta Gundam only ever existed as a computer simulation. If only they had an online learning community with thousands of inspiring classes for just about everyone, just like today's sponsors, Skillshare. Whether you want to explore new skills, deepen existing passions, or get lost in creativity, you'll be sure to find something that fits with your needs and your level. As for me, I am slowly making progress with my little Arduino board, and I'm currently following Lee Assam's classes on making my first project. And because Skillshare is tailored towards learning, there are no ads, and premium classes are added all of the time, meaning that there's also always something new to explore. So click the link in the description down below if you too want to start exploring your creativity today. The first 1,000 of my subscribers to do so will get 1 month of Skillshare completely free. Unless you want to be like Anaheim Electronics, who were forced to shelve the design of that amazing looking Delta Gundam. This would change when the AUG acquired the Gundam Mark-IIs, and with it, the Titans' version of the movable frame. This version would soon prove to be superior to the one developed by Anaheim, and the Delta Gundam's design was once again dusted off. But instead of simply upgrading it with the new movable frame, the mobile suit was instead redesigned as the Hyaku Shiki, a high-performance but non-transformable mobile suit. In fact, its designer, a certain M. Nagano, was so confident in the capabilities of this machine that he believed that it would last 100 years, a confidence that was reflected in the name of the machine, Hyaku Shiki, or Type 100 in English. And while the machine wouldn't be able to last 100 years, it would nonetheless serve admirably throughout 2 wars. And for this, there are a number of reasons. First of all, the new movable frame technology gave the Hyaku Shiki incredible agility, something that was utilized to the max by its pilot Quattro Bajeena, a man whose fighting style has been compared to that of the legendary Char Aznable, even to the point that some people believe that they are one and the same. The second big reason then was its durability. Even though the Hyaku Shiki wasn't a super well armored unit, the armor that it did have was treated with a special anti-beam reflective coating, something that was carried over from the Delta Gundam, and also the thing that gave both of them their distinctive golden shine. As the name indicated, this special coating added an extra layer of defense against beam weapons, which, by the time of the Grips War, had become the norm for almost all mobile suits. However, just because it granted more protection didn't mean that it made the machine impervious. The coating protects the Hyaku Shiki by ablation, so in the best case scenario, it would take a couple of hits before completely vanishing, and in the worst case scenario, a powerful beam could still get through, although significantly weakened. Or, in other words, it could turn a shot that would have caused major damage into minor damage. However, it also must be said that the real-life effect of this coating didn't quite match the expected results, which would probably also explain why it was eventually phased out. The other big reason then was of course the age-old problem of money. Applying and reapplying this coating was expensive. Too expensive for the little bit of extra protection that it offered. And finally, its weapons were also very effective. It used the standard 60mm Vulcan guns, 2 beam sabers, the clay bazooka that was also used by the Rig Diaz, and the BFM-87 beam rifle that has become synonymous with the Hyaku Shiki. It combined raw power with portability, it had replaceable E-packs, and could even generate a beam blade from the barrel. Truly a jack of all trades. And when not in use, 2 clay bazookas or beam rifles could be stored on the Hyaku Shiki's backpack. On that thing were also 2 wing binders left over from the Delta Gundam's design, and even though it could no longer transform, they were still useful in the form of arm-back maneuvering, and therefore made the Hyaku Shiki more agile. If need be, the backpack could also be ejected, and if the situation called for it, could even be used as a makeshift projectile. Also, its weapons worked very well in conjunction with the Image Directive Encode system, also known as simply the IDE system. And even though you might not have heard the name before, I'm certain that you've seen it in action. The purpose it serves is scanning for enemies, which is particularly useful during sniping. It also contains dual eye cameras underneath. And because of this high performance, the Hyaku Shiki would also be used to test out experimental equipment like the Mega Bazooka launcher, an extremely powerful mega particle cannon that was superior in strength to many warship cannons. Because of this, the thing had its own built-in thermonuclear reactor, but additional mobile suits could be connected to the thing to speed up the exceedingly long recharge time between shots. The big and obvious downside to this giant weapon was the fact that it bogged down the unit using it, so it shouldn't come as a surprise that it didn't become a staple for the agile Hyaku Shiki, and instead it was later deployed by more sniper-oriented machines. With the success of the Hyaku Shiki then, it also shouldn't come as a surprise that Anaheim Electronics and the AUG quickly set out to make even more powerful versions and would also attempt to mass produce it. The first result of this would be the Hyaku Shiki Kai, a machine whose main focus was reducing the weight and increasing the thrust to create an even more agile machine. This was achieved by redesigning the armor and completely overhauling the backpack, and also adding more flexible wing binders and upgrading the thrusters. Their goal of creating a more agile machine was certainly a success thanks to this, but their goal of creating a lighter machine, not so much. Now, this was partially because the Kai had a larger fuel capacity, and partially because of their other goal, making the Kai more powerful in the weapons department. It retained the former tried and true beam rifle, clay bazooka, and beam sabers, but it now also had arm-mounted multi-purpose launchers inspired by the Zeta Gundam, and just like it, these would most commonly be used as grenade launchers. The Vulcan guns were replaced by pulse laser guns, and 2 shoulder weapon hardpoints that could either house a beam Gatling or a beam gun each were added. Other upgrades then include upgraded sensors, an overhauled inner frame for better mass production, and modified leg suspension. Also, the thing now had a new head that seemed to be inspired by the aliens from Alien. It is difficult to say how many Hyaku Shiki Kais were made, but it must have at least been a handful, since we do know of several units seeing active service, including one on board of the Londo Bell flagship Neo Argama in UC0090, and also because of a number of variants that were also made. And one of the more impressive looking variants was the full armor Hyaku Shiki Kai, continuing the long-standing tradition of attempting to turn highly agile machines into fully armored gun carriers that then almost never get adopted. So, other than its new and cumbersome armor, the Hyaku Shiki Kai now had access to 4 2-tube missile launchers, 2 on the waist and 1 on each leg, 2 beam cannons on the backpack, a mega particle cannon in the chest, 2 beam sabers, 2 explosive bolts on the arms, which are basically mobile suit-sized brass knuckles, which are electrified, the normal Hyaku Shiki beam rifle, and the long Mega Buster beam rifle. So in terms of weaponry, this thing sure packed one hell of a punch. Unfortunately, the thrusters were hardly upgraded, resulting in a serious reduction of mobility. However, this wasn't actually given as the main reason for the full armor not being adopted. It was because at that moment, large transformable mobile suits were taking the center stage, so Anime Electronics decided that they wanted to focus more on that market. As with the original Hyaku Shiki Kai then, we don't exactly know how many were made, but we do know that it was made, and that it did even see quite some action. Even as late as the UC0096s, when it was piloted by Martin Murtaugh against Xeon Remnants. And the same thing goes for the Hyaku Shiki Kai mass production type, an attempted mass production version of the Hyaku Shiki Kai. Although, it might actually be more accurate to call it a mass production version of the regular Hyaku Shiki, because only the head and the shoulders were taken from the Kai, with the rest being Hyaku Shiki parts. At least, visually speaking. The other 2 tweaks then to make it more suitable for mass production were 1, the removal of the wing binders, and 2, it only used 1 beam Gatling gun on the right shoulder. And with all of this, the design specs were met. The Hyaku Shiki Kai mass production type had excellent performance at a reduced cost. But sadly, the project was ultimately cancelled, meaning that, ironically enough, it's highly likely that the mass production version actually had less units produced than the regular version. The final Hyaku Shiki Kai variant then was the Hyaku Shiki Kai land combat version that was developed by Karaba. With the ever more powerful units being deployed by the Titans, their mainstay Gym-2s and even Nemos had begun to struggle. So, having been gifted the data of the Hyaku Shiki Kai, Karaba set to work completely overhauling it to fit with their needs as a high-performance ground pounder. It now featured water and dust-proof seals that even allowed it to function underwater for a short period of time. The backpack and leg thrusters were radically changed to emphasize stability during freefall and hovering, and finally, all of its weapons were completely changed. The head-mounted pulse laser guns were now changed back to the regular 60mm Vulcan guns, the beam sabers were now a different model and are located on the backpack, there's 2 grenades on the back skirt, the main handheld equipment is a beam rifle with underslung railgun, and the shoulder hardpoints are replaced with hardpoints on the backpack, which can either house a triple missile launcher or a beam cannon. Also, unlike all other Hyaku Shikis, this one comes with a dedicated shield that is also fitted with a grenade launcher. And finally, its color is changed from the very striking gold to a more greenish hue to, of course, better fit in with the environment that this thing is meant to operate in. Again, we don't know exactly how many units were made, but one of them is known to have been deployed in the defense of New York when Neo Zeon tried invading it in August of UC0088. And while those were all of the main Hyaku Shiki machines, there are still a few more units that we must have a look at. First and foremost, the Nemo High Maneuver type, a high mobility version of the Nemo that was essentially just the regular Nemo, but with the Hyaku Shiki's backpack and beam rifle, upgraded thrusters on the legs, and a custom short-barreled bazooka for hit-and-run tactics. It is known that the unit was approved for battlefield testing, and that it also sortied at least once, but no further information is currently available. Next up is the Epsilon Gundam, also known as the Epsy Gundam. Development of this machine started after the Rig Diaz, and the main feature was the possibility of installing a nuclear pulse propulsion system. This would allow for a much larger range of operations compared to normal mobile suits. Another benefit of this propulsion system was that it emitted a strong magnetic field when active, which was essentially an anti-beam barrier. However, as with many things, this project was considered to be too expensive, and the machine never made it past the planning stage. Instead, It is said that the design, minus the nuclear pulse propulsion system, was carried over to the Delta Gundam, and subsequently the Hyaku Shiki. And then the final unit is the Zero Shiki, a unit that would serve as a prototype for the Hyaku Shiki, but only in the Zeta Gundam Defined manga continuity, and therefore not in mainline canon. Something then that might not be immediately obvious is that this machine was a development from the Rig Diaz, so we'll have a closer look at it when we finally get to that development history. And to make sure you don't miss it, why not subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. Also, let me know down below which one is your favorite golden mobile suit. A big thank you to Skillshare for sponsoring this video, and another big thank you to the Patreon supporters. I hope everyone watching has a great day, and I'll see you all next time.